probably be left out of this. And if Kane was going to be involved in this storyline, it probably should be The Undertaker versus Kane in a symbolic match, given their history at Survivor Series. But, The Undertaker and Kane reuniting, I mean, how long ago was it since we saw the Brothers of Destruction actually do something meaningful as a unit in professional wrestling? The last time we saw them team together was with Daniel Bryan when The Undertaker teamed with Team Hell No, Kane and Daniel Bryan, and faced the Shield during the UK tour for an edition of Monday Night Raw, in a match they actually lost. And the last time we saw the Brothers of Destruction actually do something meaningful was against MVP and Mr. Kennedy when they were trying to boost the SmackDown ratings in the last Ride match scenario with Mr. Kennedy and The Undertaker, and the Inferno match between Kane and Montel Vontavious Porter, MVP, back in December of 2006 for that year's Armageddon pay-per-view. We also got a tag team match scenario in there for SmackDown ratings purposes to boost them up when The Undertaker and Kane faced MVP and Mr. Kennedy in a tag team match, which they obviously won. We've seen The Undertaker and Kane form a team on and off again over the last at least 10 through 15 years, and this definitely is very symbolic of that. It kind of throws you back to when The Undertaker and Kane were boosting the ratings of both Raw and SmackDown and making names for themselves at the expense of the new talent initiative back then with the likes of MVP and Mr. Kennedy. But I think that wrestling fans of this new generation are going to be really reintroduced to what the Brothers of Destruction really meant to the wrestling business. Putting them in the ring against the Wyatts is one thing, but, The Undertaker and Kane from the years gone by definitely is something that really needs to be put on display in this match. And fans, I think, are going to be reintroduced to what The Undertaker and Kane really meant. The Undertaker and Kane, in my opinion, were household names ever before the term household was probably ever put on somebody in the wrestling business. I mean, very few people have been given that distinction of being a household name. Hulk Hogan was one of those household names. Obviously, Shawn Michaels and Triple H, Jake the Snake Roberts, Macho Man Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warrior. They were all given that distinction of being a household name, but there were very few names that were actually given that distinction of being a household scenario in professional wrestling. And The Undertaker and Kane definitely were household names ever before. People like the names that I just mentioned probably ever were household names, because they really gave us a hell of a run in professional wrestling. And I guess if WWE feel this is the most effective thing for them to do for the 25th anniversary of The Undertaker, then more power to them. Obviously, you would think that I probably would be for something more effectively distributed for The Undertaker's 25th anniversary, like The Undertaker versus Kane match being played at as early as Survivor Series. But I think it would be more appropriate if we saw The Undertaker and Kane have The Undertaker's retirement match at WrestleMania 32. And I think this match with the Wyatts is a perfect way of setting up for that. So having it happen at Survivor Series, be it that it's the last major pay-per-view, the last staple pay-per-view of 4 for 2015, I think it allows enough time to hype up for Kane versus Undertaker if you're going to go that direction with it. And it's also going to make time to create a great storyline, although I wish more people would probably be involved in this storyline, because I know from 5 years ago when The Undertaker and Paul Bearer were reunited and they were doing that whole scenario on SmackDown when Kane was the world champion and The Undertaker was trying to take the strap off him, and we saw things like the first ever Buried Alive match, the first ever Hell in a Cell match between these two. Paul Bearer was involved in the storyline, and I know from 5 years ago when they were talking about The Undertaker having his final run with the company, they were bringing him back with Paul Bearer to have his former manager at his side for the first time in years. I really wish Paul Bearer was still alive, because without a doubt he would be involved in this storyline because of how much he meant to The Undertaker's career. Of course, he obtained the manager license of The Undertaker from Brother Love back in 1991 when The Undertaker's new manager was introduced, and of course Paul Bearer became a driving force behind The Undertaker's character because he just stood out so much. He had that high, shrivelly voice and a high-pitched voice that had so many unbelievable promos given to wrestling fans because of the image that he had, and just the whole concept of the wrestling business being grasped so phenomenally by Paul Bearer. I think he would be a tremendous addition to The Undertaker's 25th anniversary. But I mean, when you really think about it, with or without Paul Bearer, with or without somebody who probably could be involved in this storyline, given the fact The Undertaker's had history with so many names, from Hulk Hogan right through to Bret Hart, no matter if you're talking about a match he's had with Bret Hart, a match he's had with Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, so many unbelievable classics, even with new talent wrestlers like John Cena. We put over in about 2002, 2003, Randy Orton. How many people he defeated at WrestleMania? Over 10 world champions he defeated, and a host of Hall of Famers in that streak. It was unbelievable. watching The Undertaker defeat everybody he did until he lost the match with Brock Lesnar for the first time in years. That shock of over 75,000 fans is an image that's been still in my mind for forever. But I mean, what an unbelievable streak The Undertaker had, as I mentioned. Defeating 10 former world champions, including all 3 members of Evolution, names like Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels. So many people have tried to end that streak over the years, were unable to do it. And it's being said now, to make things feel a little bit better for wrestling fans, that The Undertaker actually wanted Brock Lesnar to be the man to end the streak. But I sometimes have my doubts about that, given the history The Undertaker's had with so many names like Shawn Michaels and Kane over the years. Probably if it were up to wrestling fans, someone like Kane or Sting would have ended The Undertaker's streak. But it's being said now The Undertaker actually wanted Brock Lesnar to be the man, to be the one to end the streak, because of the history they have had for years, to try to make wrestling fans feel better about the whole idea of The Undertaker wanting his streak to end. And I guess that's the way they're trying to play it out now, with how he wanted Brock Lesnar, apparently given their history from the years they spent on SmackDown, trying to boost the ratings on their previous Hell in a Cell match from October of 2002. As I mentioned, when profiling The Undertaker, Brock Lesnar Hell in a Cell match from 2015. It's been over 11 years. Since we saw that 11 or 12 years, that first Hell in a Cell match between the two. So given their history, they're trying to play it off that way, because I know there are a lot of people who probably would have liked to seen someone like The Rock or Kane or Triple H or Shawn Michaels be the one given that distinction to end the Undertaker streak at WrestleMania. But as I mentioned, 10 world champions, including 3 members of Evolution. I mean, what much more is there for The Undertaker to give us? All the unbelievable moments, all the unbelievable matches and promos we've seen The Undertaker in, and this has to be the most unbelievable promo package we've ever seen put together for The Undertaker. A 25-year celebration of The Undertaker's career, saying 25 years ago he rose for us, and 25 years later now we rise for him, with The Undertaker's going off. And this unbelievable storyline, you got to give it up to the Wyatt family for putting this over. I mean, all 4 members of the Wyatt family getting back on the same page. The original Wyatt family members like Eric Rowan, Luke Harper, Braun Strowman, and Bray Wyatt. 3 of the 4 original Wyatt family members from their days on NXT putting over this storyline so phenomenally well. And I'll never forget the promo where Bray Wyatt actually held The Undertaker's trademark hat in his hand while sitting in a rocking chair, talking about how infamous The Undertaker's been for years now, how he is the most powerful entity in professional wrestling, and he wants to be known as the man for desecrating The Undertaker and taking that reputation away from him, a reputation he's had as a household name for years. To be honest with you, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see The Undertaker and Kane win this match, even if The Undertaker does get turned on by Kane at some point in this match. It will not happen until the conclusion of the match, setting up for what would obviously be Kane versus The Undertaker, or probably The Undertaker versus Sting at WrestleMania 32, coming up in 2016. I think we're going to see The Undertaker and Kane be victorious in this storyline, because to bet against these guys after The Undertaker lost such an infamous match with Brock Lesnar would be kind of ludicrous on my part to do so, so I refuse to do so. With that, I'm going to choose The Undertaker and Kane in this match. Even if Kane does turn on The Undertaker, we're going to see it at the end of the match, setting up for something far greater at WrestleMania 32, either in the way of The Undertaker versus Kane, or something being played out to set up for Sting versus Undertaker. There's got to be a reason behind that match happening. But again, there are so many ways that this could go. Either way, it's Survivor Series, no matter what you're talking about. The WWE World Championship match with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, or The Undertaker and Kane facing the Wyatts. At some point at Survivor Series, pretty much, you're going to see someone turn on the other person. If it doesn't happen in the Undertaker-Kane versus the Wyatts Survivor Series match, it's going to happen in the championship match between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, given their history. Because it's being said that Dean Ambrose could pull a heel turn, turning on Roman Reigns, costing him the chance to become champion in what is probably his 3rd opportunity at that championship in 2015, at least his 3rd or 4th opportunity at this championship, and it could go astray with Dean Ambrose pulling a heel turn on Roman Reigns. And if we don't get it there, we're probably going to see it in the Survivor Series match with the Wyatts taking on the Brothers of Destruction. But it's just phenomenal how this is all playing out. And in terms of a 5-star scale perspective rating, you can easily rate this storyline at least 5 out of 5 stars, going all the way, because you have the legends, The Undertaker and Kane, putting over the Wyatts in recent weeks the way they have, and you have the Wyatt family doing a phenomenal job being the people who are obviously going to drop this match to The Undertaker and Kane, but everybody in this storyline is doing a phenomenal job, and it's one of the storylines that WWE can be put over for, and you can kind of give them the benefit of the doubt for, because it's one of the more far creative storylines by far that I have seen in a very long time. And it's one of those storylines that I can kind of get into and I can kind of talk about for forever. In my written column for In This Corner with Jonathan Clarke, or on this YouTube channel at Jonathan Clarke 22. I can talk about something like this for forever because of just how significant this really is. Now, there are those critics out there that may not feel that this is as significant as what it probably could be, but it really has significance, and you really got to look hard to find where the significance is in this storyline, because you have this powerful force, the Wyatt family, coming from out of nowhere on NXT, leaving their impression on WWE and all of its fans the way they have. Here comes The Undertaker a year after losing his streak at WrestleMania, and just the significance is really standing out to me in this, and I really am looking forward to finding out how this will all play out, at least over the next 6 months, because it's going to be interesting. We are headed down a very interesting road, heading down the road to WrestleMania 32, with the venue obviously being Dallas, Texas, being very significant and standing out to me, obviously signifying something very significant over the next couple of months. We're headed down a very significant road for WrestleMania 32. How it's going to play out, I really don't know, but if I had to gamble and make a couple of predictions, it's either going to go the way of The Undertaker versus Kane or The Undertaker versus Sting, one of those two scenarios. And as I mentioned, coming up next week on the show, I'm going to be touching on The Undertaker versus Sting for what will hopefully be the final time on the road to WrestleMania 32, even if we don't get the match at WrestleMania 32. I still go back to The Undertaker and Sting, of course, being cheered for when Sting gave his post-WrestleMania interview on WWE Network after losing to Triple H. Fans were chanting Undertaker when Sting was trying to be questioned on his future, and he said he didn't know if he was going to have a match with The Undertaker or not. All he knew was he was going to reach out and grab whatever professional wrestling and WWE threw his way, and obviously fans want them to throw the way of The Undertaker for WrestleMania 32 next year in Dallas, and I'd love to see that. Even if it doesn't happen, at least wrestling fans are asking for it. They are talking about it on social media a lot, and if they're not talking about that, they're talking about where we go from here after we finish up with the 25th anniversary of The Undertaker on the 22nd of the month. And if you're subscribed to WWE Network, they've got a lot of stuff on demand, by the way, of people like Alberto Del Rio and The Undertaker out of celebration of 25 years of what has really been an unbelievable career for The Undertaker. And all throughout our website, all throughout the month of November, I'm going to make sure there's a lot of Undertaker content in the way of memorable moments, promos, matches, interviews. I'm going to cover The Undertaker for you and do the best job I can when profiling 25 years of The Undertaker. Next week, we're going to cap it off with The Undertaker and Sting match for WrestleMania 32 next